electric there in just a second, but Michael, let me ask you about affordability and accessibility. And I would imagine for a product like the one that we're just going to go see, that's going to be a different dynamic altogether. But if I remember correctly, it was what, about $4 per ride at least a couple of years ago. What is it currently?
For that product, the kick scooter, we're down to about $2 a ride in the US, and most of that cost is actually our labor. It's the time we put into maintaining the vehicles and recharging them, and the cost of the vehicle itself is a pretty small fraction of that. So when you think about going to other parts of the world where people have a different willingness to pay, for example India, most of the cost of providing our service is going to come with the people that we hire to maintain those vehicles and recharge those vehicles, and the cost of whether the vehicle costs more or less is not going to be the most important thing. So we think the service, because we're a service and not a retailer, adapts really well to different markets with different willingness to pay.
One of the challenges, especially for something like a two-wheeler in the Indian context, is the fact that you're used to Ola and Uber, where you have a driver, they look after the car and so on and so forth. Here, I mean, there's been significant...
No room for a driver on that one.
No room for a driver on that one, but there have been significant sort of issues with vandalism and, all of that. I mean, how do you intend to cope with something like that?
In fact, I think San Francisco chose Scoot because they believe Michael had, if not all the answers, had begun to address all these issues about safety, about driving on the pedestrian walkways and the pavements when you oughtn't to do that, to talk about vandalism. They're putting a lock in, there's a software lock, there's a GPS tracking capability, there's a code that you're going to put around it. Everyone's working on these solutions real time. I believe then all the solutions haven't emerged. But clearly, given how the market is valuing all the players in this area, the market believes this is the right solution, and we will find answers to all those thorny issues.
Speaking of those thorny issues, what's been the experience so far, Michael?
Our riders love this product. They use it for all kinds of short trips. It gets actually used more often than many of our other types of vehicles. We offer electric bicycles and electric motorbikes, but theft is an important issue. This vehicle does need to be secured, and it does need to be kept good track of with GPS and the technology that we developed at Scoot to manage those fleets. And that's what our job is to make sure that those vehicles are there when our riders want to ride them, and developing those technologies and those practices and those locks and those things, that's part of our value.
Okay, so let's go have a look at what we're talking about. This is the Scoot Kick Scooter. Do you intend to launch this in India anytime soon, Mr. Mahindra?
I believe this is really the future of last mile mobility in the world. This is the cell phone of the last mile mobility and the ecosystem of mobility in any city.
Is this practical for Indian roads?
It's much more hardy than you might think. I know that for many Indians, they'll say, oh, I had this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That is good because they know how to ride it. It's easier than riding a bike. They have another model in the works, top secret, so I can't show it to you. It's not on display here, but that will be far more durable and much more suited for Indian roads. All I want, Shireen, is that this is not part of the conversation. When I went to policymakers today, they said, what do you want to do? And they said, start a pilot. They were incredibly receptive. I said, look, I just came to ask you, do you think I'm barking up the wrong tree? Is this a wild goose chase? Does this have a place? And fortunately, they were all extremely positive about this. My goal on this trip for Michael is just make this part of the conversation of mobility.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to ask you to scoot over as well. And, give me a sense of, this has a battery, and, give me a sense of what this can do.
Okay, so this has a battery under the floorboard, and that's where it gets its juice from. It has a motor in the rear wheel, which is what makes it go, and there's a brake back there, obviously, which makes it stop, very important. And if you look up on the handlebars, there's a little button on the right hand, and that is what you press, just like the accelerator on your motorcycle or the throttle in your car, and that's what makes the scooter move forward, and you stand on it, and off you go.
So you don't make them. You've had several other sort of collaborators that you worked with from a design perspective. I think Silence was one of the companies that you worked with as well. You don't intend to make these either. So this is not going to be Make in India for Mahindra.
Make in India. This is Ride in India. As far as we are concerned, it's a mobility platform. Mahindra wants to be in the mobility business too. We want to be part of the solution, Shri. We want to be seen as a mobility company that is part of the solution, and this is a big part of that.
Okay, let me just ask you about, since you were talking about multimodal modes of transport and the last mile solution, you've just launched your electric three-wheeler as well in Bangalore, same day that you launched the Java actually in Mumbai, so congratulations on that. But again, give me a sense of what the expectation is with the e-three-wheeler.
Interestingly, you must have seen, recently there was a lot of sound and light in the press about how in the e-three-wheeler, India is ahead of China. 1.65 million on the roads. Even I didn't know that. That was very interesting. And today, let's take Delhi. If you sell 5,000 e-three-wheelers, lead-acid battery three-wheelers, Mahindra sells 1,000 of them. So we are actually already leaders in that market. The Trio is a lithium-ion battery, so that is going to take us into another generation. And judging from the response of auto owners, once again, fleets, people who use them, was very positive. So I believe, in fact, the funny thing is, when I first met Michael and he showed me a presentation on what he thought was the ecosystem of the future, he had a three-wheeler on it. And he said, you know, the most used vehicles will in fact be two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And so in a sense the three-wheeler is part of our multimodal solution. Even Scoot does not intend to be a kick scooter player or an e-scooter player. It wants to offer multimodal opportunities. Interestingly, in all the meetings we had in Delhi today, that was the consensus. Don't just bring this is perfect, but can you make it part of a multimodal offering on your platform?
But just to continue with the three-wheeler conversation, how much of that is going to be made in India eventually? I mean, the battery is probably being imported out of China. And you know, in terms of the cost economics, how is that going to work out? And there are concerns about the range specifically and whether these batteries made in China are going to be durable in Indian conditions.
You know, we've been doing this for a long time. As you know, we've bbeen getting batteries for the E2O, and we've been getting them from China and from Korea. So there's going to be improvement. As you know, the quality that we've been delivering in E2O has met with expectations. As far as the cells are imported, the battery packs, the battery management systems are all done in India. And the same day we launched the Trio, we announced that we were dramatically expanding our plant in Bangalore and changing its positioning from being an assembly plant to being a technology plant. So we gradually think India will creep up the technology ladder. And fundamentally, wherever the cell comes from, it may be from China, which has enormous scale to provide that. But I think what goes on top of that battery, of that cell, is going to be increasingly made in India.
Okay. Michael, you know, in your experience, from a regulatory point of view, what is it that governments will need to do to ensure that this ecosystem builds itself out?
I think governments need to realize that there is so much room for shared electric mobility in their cities. We've built bus systems, we've built subway systems in cities all over the world. The next generation of mass transit for cities is shared electric vehicles. It's the fastest way to reduce air pollution, to get people around the city, improve the quality of urban transportation. We can build systems of tens of thousands of vehicles in a matter of months or years in a way that building a subway system or a bus line can take much longer. So we're looking forward to being one of the companies that moves cities into the 21st century of electric mobility. And I think cities, when they realize that this is such a powerful tool at their disposal, they should embrace it.
So, you know, you said that it's not important to sort of pin the blame on any specific individual or government or policy. We're all learning together. But what is the need of the hour today from a policy perspective, and where do